Auburn landing the huge commitment from Broderick Shull really just shows how different things are now here at Auburn.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. We're joined by Lindsay Crosby of auburndaily.com, as well as a million other places, but Lindsay, what a weekend it was for Auburn on the recruiting side of things. And there's a lot of things that are coming into form and really setting up for a huge weekend next week. And we'll talk more about that coming up, as well as some of the preseason magazines saying not super nice things about Auburn. But then when you read between the lines, it's like, well, not everything they're saying can be true at the same time. So we'll jump into that too. But first thing, Broderick Shull commits to the Tigers. And he is the fifth offensive lineman to join Auburn's 2025 class. And Lindsay, this is just, it's different. There's no other way to say it. It's just different here at Auburn now under Hugh Freeze's leadership, putting an emphasis on not only recruiting, but getting positions of need and obviously revamping this offensive line. I mean, we haven't ever seen anything like this here at Auburn, at least in the last, 20 years?
When I saw that we had signed another or got a commitment from another high school offensive tackle, my first reaction was, are we allowed to do that? Because it felt like for the longest time, the whole back half of the Gus Malzahn tenure, and you could argue what resulted in the downfall of Gus Malzahn at Auburn. I mean, there was multiple factors, but you could argue the biggest glaring thing towards the end of his tenure is just the inability to get offensive linemen out of high school. And then when he did, they weren't tackles. It was a lot of guards. It wasn't really centers. It wasn't really tackles. It was a lot of guards. And so you had to figure out, who can we kick outside? Who can we move in and have them snap? And the subpar offensive line play meant that his scheme, his offense didn't work as well. And ultimately, that is why he didn't survive at all, right? And you're already starting to see some stuff at UCF about their offensive line issues and them having trouble there. And so Hugh Freeze coming in, all of the portal commitments that we got, we talked about last year, we had the best portal offensive line class of anybody in football. Yeah. You do that, you go out, you get a more offensive linemen in the portal this year, and then you combine that with this high school recruiting. Like you said, it's been at least 20 years since we've seen offensive linemen commit to Auburn at this kind of scale. And it makes you feel really good about, one, the success of the offense this year, but then two, the situation you're creating for future recruits and how to sell them on coming to Auburn.
There was a point a few months ago where it's like, okay, they got their two tackles. Like, it'd be interesting to see who else would want to come here, because you already had Tavares Dice and you had Carday Smith. And it's like, both these guys kind of project to be solid SEC level, SEC caliber tackles, depending on who you talk to. But now they bring in Broderick Shull as well, who, based on what recruiting site you're looking at, in this case On3 has him as an eventual 5-star with how they have him ranked right now. Mm-hmm. He's the highest ranked player, or the highest ranked offensive lineman in this class. And just to think that they still may not be done with the offensive line, it's just so exciting. It's just so exciting to see the staff really put an emphasis on that. So hats off to Hugh Freeze. And hats off to Jake Thornton, offensive line coach.
Yeah, it feels like one of the hardest things to do, and you kind of alluded to it there, is to get a quality player when you already have quality players committed at that position. I believe, if I remember right, the 247 composite had him as a top 20 tackle in the nation.
Yeah.
And, we already had a top 10 class. He's the best commitment in the class. You have to imagine that's going to go up some. I haven't actually seen the new class calculations yet. But if it continues at the pace that it is, being able to go out and double up on players at positions of need, get even more highly rated players on top of highly rated players you have and things like that. Is the ceiling of this class right here a top 5 class in the country?
I would almost be a little surprised if they didn't get there. Especially, I'm still of the belief, and we'll talk about it in a second, that Juju Lewis is a part of this class. And I just think that catapults you into an opportunity to do some things that we just haven't been able to see, Auburn really pull off since that one Chiswick class that was, up there. I think this one has a chance to do all that. In the SEC, Auburn sits as the 4th highest rated class behind LSU, Alabama, and Georgia. How many times have we seen Auburn come in with the 8th or 9th class in the country?
It's a top 20 class, but it's 9th in the SEC.
Yeah, or even those few Gus years where they'd be 8th in the country and 6th in the SEC. But now
and then it's mostly athletes.
Right. That's right. Yeah. And so, Auburn's out recruiting A&M, Oklahoma, Texas, Tennessee, Ole Miss. I mean, it's been good to see. So Broderick Shull, though, just as a player, I've said this before. I mean, he reminds me of Braden Smith as far as the technique and as far as his ability to just pulverize opposing guys. I think Shull's meaner. He's meaner. But all in all, he's exactly what you want.
I want my offensive lineman to be mean. That is a defining characteristic, I think, of an offensive lineman, of a good one. Nobody saw a good offensive lineman and was like, he's such a gentle soul. You never hear that about the greatest offensive lineman. And so I love the fact that that's one, the comparison. Braden Smith was a very good lineman here, but then to hear about some of the mean streak and things like that these guys have makes me feel good. Obviously took an official visit, went ahead and committed. Thornton has, from what I read from his comments and stuff, he pointed out that Thornton made him told him he was a priority, and he had all this work to do and he still found the time to come see him and all of this stuff. The school really wants him. He loved coming on campus. We talk about that all the time. You get guys on campus. That's a differentiator here at Auburn, is getting guys on campus compared to other schools. I don't know what those schools are doing wrong, but love the fact that Broderick Shull is part of this class. And it makes you kind of think about, okay, you still haven't had your big recruiting weekend, right? You still haven't had Big Cat Weekend. How much more can this class add between now and then? And then what does that do for you? And then what would it do if you had a Juju Lewis officially, verbally?
Yeah, and if I'm Juju Lewis, why wouldn't I go to Auburn? That's next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. Lindsay, can you imagine? Can you imagine hiring somebody and not using LinkedIn Jobs to find them?
We've hired people recently, and the ones that didn't come from LinkedIn Jobs, bums. The ones that came from LinkedIn Jobs, great. They know who they are.
Oh, man. Oh, do they? Now, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for your role, and you want to do it at a cost-effective level, and you want to do it quickly. Well, LinkedIn Jobs helps you check all those boxes at once. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. If I'm a quarterback, which I have never been one, but if I was a 5-star quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in my class, and every team, every school in the country wanted me, the first thing I would ask is, do I have the pieces around me to win, and to win early? And when Juju asks those questions to Auburn next time he's here, which I believe will be this upcoming weekend, Hugh Freeze is going to be able to look him in the eye and say, yes. Look at the class that we are forming on the offensive line, as well as some of the pieces that we already added on the offensive line last year. And they're still going to have to get some older veteran tackles, I think, through the portal. That's just an opinion. We'll see how certain guys develop over the course of the year before December rolls around. But Auburn's in a spot where, hey, Juju Lewis, there is a wall forming in front of you. Running back, I don't think Auburn will ever have to worry about running back. I think the path to running back being successful during Juju's time here will make sense. And then obviously wide receiver.
Mhm.
Think a year from now when Juju will be getting ready to prepare for his first season at hopefully Auburn. We'll see. Cam Coleman will have a year under his belt. And then as well as the rest of the Freeze 4.
Right.
With Perry and Bryce and Malcolm Simmons. And we all think Cunningham will be a part of Auburn's class when it's all said and done. It's just the level of talent around him. There's not going to be a whole lot, as far as on paper goes, there's not going to be a whole lot of schools that could say, yes, we can compete with that. Outside of Alabama and Georgia, we just mentioned all the teams that are recruiting better than them right now. It's not many, and they already have their quarterback for this class.
Yeah. I took the liberty of pulling up the USC depth chart. That's where he's committed right now. And this is unofficial. So mind you, there's some stuff here, but there are 9 total offensive linemen on this depth chart, period. Like that's it. Of that, 4 of them are listed as seniors and 5 of them are draft eligible now, never mind in 2025. And so you could have complete turnover. Their receivers are 4 sophomores, a redshirt senior, and a junior. And so every single one of those guys, the good ones, could all have gone pro by the time he gets there. And so the school that he's currently committed to, he would legitimately have questions about who is going to block for me, who am I going to throw to, and looking at the running backs, redshirt senior and a sophomore, who am I going to hand the ball off to?
Yeah.
Never mind, that is a coaching staff that we have seen turnover. We have seen that. I don't think he would, but we have seen the head coach leave a school before in the middle of a contract.
Sure.
I don't think he would leave USC for somebody else, but
Agreed.
You have to think about like, okay, he's got this reputation of being a little bit flighty, and you compare that with the situation at Auburn. It feels like it's better in almost every single respect. You don't have the climate of California. Yes, it's a lot hotter here, but outside of that, you don't have to.
Carrollton, like he knows.
He's used to
it.
You don't have to fly cross country to play some of your games because you're not in a weird conference. Your parents don't have to fly cross country to see you play. Lower cost of living. I mean, it's not just the football situation, but that is a better situation. Almost everything about this is better at Auburn. And so it makes sense that no, Auburn's a very, very attractive destination. I would argue to any quarterback transfer piece. If you're a transfer running back, you're a transfer tight end, whoever, Auburn's a very attractive piece because you look at this expected depth chart and it's either seniors who are going to be gone. Keandre Lambert-Smith's a senior, or it's a lot of very, very talented young guys that will have a chance to get all those freshman jitters out of the way. I mean, if I was an elite quarterback in high school right now, I would want to go to Auburn.
I think so. And I talked about this with Hank Brown a few weeks ago. And I asked him point blank, it's like, hey, it seems like Hugh Freeze and the staff have done everything possible that making playing quarterback at Auburn easier than it was just a few months ago. Was that true? And he's like, absolutely. Absolutely. They've done such a good job of teaching, but obviously bringing guys in. And that's your goal as a head coach, especially an offensive minded head coach like Freeze is every offseason, you want to make your quarterback be a little bit more comfortable. And you do that by teaching. You do that by, renovating your scheme and playing your scheme and calling plays to your quarterback strengths. And then making the talent around you better. And that's what he's doing. That's what he's doing. And he hasn't been here that long. And the strides that we've seen from the talent around the quarterback has been dramatic, Lindsay. It's been dramatic.
I have to ask, on the note of the talent acquisition, is this one of the more, just on paper from a talent perspective, not the on-field results, on paper from a talent perspective, is this one of the best rebuilds, the quickest rebuilds that you've seen in your time watching college football? Like, if you think about where this program was at the end of the Brian Harsin era on Halloween, when Potato Man got fired because one player from his first class was still here and all that good stuff, to where it is now. This is one of the better rebuild jobs I can remember seeing in college football in the transfer portal era.
Yeah, I mean, in this modern era, sure. I mean, 2012 Auburn to 2013 Auburn will be historic for that reason.
Yeah.
But the context around it was different. Like, Auburn hasn't just fallen off. They just tried to do a weird thing on offense with players that were recruited to do different things. And then the guy who recruited them all to play that offense that they were intended to play came back. So, I mean, it was a weird thing. As far as just multiple years of neglect to adding talent, yeah, probably because I do think there's a misconception. There's still a shocking amount of people that will defend Brian Harsin. It's wild to me, but neglecting recruiting for 2
one of
years,
those guys is Brian Harsin on Twitter.
Probably so.
Very
Probably
active.
so. But neglecting recruiting for 2 years doesn't set your program back for 2 years. It sets your program back way more than that. I mean, the negative impact was exponential, and thank goodness for the transfer portal to kind of allow you to stopgap this a little bit. But goodness, I mean, I think what they've done has been great. It's been great, and it's honestly exceeded my expectations.
I mean, and this is all just shooting from the hip here, looking at this offensive line depth chart, looking at these 13 players, I think 3 of them were here before Hugh Freeze. Like, I think 3 of these guys were pre-Hugh Freeze. Tate Johnson, Jeremiah Wright, and Braden Joyner.
Yeah, that might be it.
I think that's it. And I mean, maybe Wright's the starter at right guard, potentially.
Yeah,
but
he probably will be.
Yeah, Tate Johnson's probably your backup center. Braden Joyner is somewhere in your probably the back of the 2 deep or start of the third team in his redshirt freshman year. I mean,
EJ Harris might have been too.
Possibly. Okay, yeah, EJ Harris might have been, right. Okay. And you know what?
He's a redshirt sophomore. So.
He's a redshirt sophomore, makes sense. Joyner actually as a redshirt freshman probably had to be that first class or something. So, yeah, you probably still have 3, but it's Harris.
Joyner may have been committed to Harsin and then stayed, I think, is how that happened.
Well, still the point is, if you didn't have Hugh Freeze come in with his talent acquisition, what would this offensive line look like now?
Yeah, I mean, so many people realize how bad it was. I don't think folks realize how bad it was. And it could have been way worse, honestly. Could have been way, way worse. But thankfully it wasn't. Some people think it's bad for Auburn. Some people think it's going to be bad for Auburn.
Ooh,
and if you're listening and not watching, I'm holding up a Lindsay Sports college football preview magazine. Good stuff. We'll talk about that in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Lindsay, can you imagine placing a bet or a wager on anything sports related anywhere other than FanDuel?
You obviously would lose it if you place it anywhere but FanDuel.
That's right. That's right.
The winning bets are on FanDuel.
Summertime means baseball, the NBA Finals, and more, and you can bet it all over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 that you can use to bet anything from Finals MVP, who's going to get who's going to hit one out of the park. I meant to put a lot on Hurston Waldrop yesterday. I didn't get to it in time. Glad I didn't.
Worked out.
Glad I didn't. But anything else, yeah, go to FanDuel for sure. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Flying through something. Sorry if I sound terrible.
You look great.
Thanks, buddy. So yeah, I was reading through Lindy's Sports College Football National 2024 preview. They rank every team.
Mm-hmm.
They have Auburn ranked 34th in the country.
Okay.
Which I don't hate. I think it's a little low, but I don't hate that. That's
based
fine.
on last year's record. I think it's defensible, right? Like you can make a legitimate argument why they should be there. It's not, I don't think it's correct, like you said, but you can make the argument.
And I'm surprised that some schools they actually have Auburn ahead of. So they had Auburn as a 10th ranked SEC team. And I'm like, that's probably not true. Like that's probably low. I don't think there are 9 SEC teams better than Auburn, but we'll see. But let's assume they're right just for a second. So their order: Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, Alabama, which, wow, Missouri, LSU, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Texas A&M. Then you've got Auburn. They have Auburn ahead of Kentucky, Florida, South Carolina, Arkansas, Mississippi State, and Vandy. So right there, they have Auburn ahead of 3 teams that they will play this season: Kentucky, Arkansas, and Vandy. Which some people, depends on when you ask me, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, have that Auburn going to Lexington as one of those toss-up games. And then we all think Auburn will beat Arkansas and Vanderbilt. Not a whole lot of disagreement there.
Right.
But if Auburn were to beat those 3 teams and take care of business in the non-conference slate, you're looking at 7-5 right there, which is already a game better than where you were a year ago. And I think it really puts you in a situation to take a big step forward the following season. But the 2 teams right in front of Auburn in these rankings, Texas A&M and Oklahoma, which Auburn plays both of those teams at home. And if you can steal one of those, which I think they will, I think they will steal one of those.
Statistically, the odds are there you'll win one of those too, right?
Agreed. And so then all of a sudden, you're sitting at 8-4 with a chance to beat both of those teams and do something really crazy.
And the last game you have to and then you just have to win one of that Georgia, Alabama, Missouri group, which the one that seems like it's the easiest to win is Missouri as of right now.
Sure.
It could end up being Alabama by the end of the year. We'll see what happens.
We'll see. Yeah.
But if you win one of those 3, which it feels like 1-3 is a real, not expectation, but that's a scenario that you could see happening, winning one of your 3 underdog games, right? And if you do, there's a 9-win season.
Yeah, I mean, the path is there. So just because the way Auburn's schedule falls, it's okay, well, they rank Auburn 10th in the SEC. It's Kentucky, Arkansas, and Vandy are right behind you. And the 2 teams in front of you very closely are Texas A&M and Oklahoma that you play at home. I don't think it's the worst draw ever. So that's one aspect that I wanted to discuss. And then the other is there's a bunch of info on the page. So there's one sentence next to every ranking, kind of justifying the ranking. So there's not a whole lot of context of why Auburn is 34. The only thing they gave us is this quick sentence: QB questions remain after Hugh Freeze failed to score in the portal. And I just had a hard time really grasping this sentence, because it's not like Auburn was shut down by a bunch of quarterbacks in the portal. That's not what happened, because there weren't really a whole lot of quarterbacks that entered the portal. And to say Freeze didn't score in the portal is dumb. It's just flat out wrong.
Yeah.
We talked about this before. They went out and got Percy Lewis. They went out and got KLS. They went out and revamped his defense. To say he didn't score in the portal is ridiculous. And to say he didn't help the quarterback situation out in the portal is ridiculous.
Bringing in multiple wide receivers. I guess Auburn was not a portal winner if you're literally looking solely at quarterbacks. And
sure,
it feels and it feels like so much of the, I'm going to call it the national discourse, even though this was talking to SEC. So much of the national discourse revolves around quarterback, right? I could see how a national writer could look at Auburn's statistics on paper last year, look at what Peyton Thorne did, look at the fact that Auburn didn't bring in a quarterback, and say they're in trouble. At the same time, we've spent this entire podcast pretty much making the case about how much you've improved the talent level on the roster as a whole, but specifically on offense, how offensive line continues to get ramped up. We've brought in wide receivers, including a guy that Peyton Thorne used to play with, who has been a quarterback in the past. And so,
but didn't score in the portal, Lindsay.
No, he
didn't score a quarterback in the portal, because it didn't he tried.
We failed to score in the portal, and Auburn's not a portal winner. I bet you South Carolina's probably listed as a portal winner. They went out and got them a Robbie Ashford. It's going to pay off.
I really think they were a portal winner.
I'm just making the joke here, but I'm pretty sure they're probably a portal winner in there. I'd be curious to see who they did talk about as a portal winner. because I'm sure if you look at the players that school brought in versus who they lost, you might be surprised as to who Lindy Magazine, and for the record, not Lindsay Magazine. This is not my magazine. I have nothing to do with these people. Lindy Magazine.
Yeah, their winners were Ole Miss, Ohio State, Florida State, Oregon, and Miami.
If I am remembering right here, quarterback, and Ole Miss always wins in the portal because they can't win on the recruiting trail with high schoolers.
Yeah, they got Walter Nolan, so it's like, yeah, you got to name them a winner. So, so they're just real big on if you got a quarterback or not, I guess, or if you're Ole Miss. So, whatever.
It'll be fun. I'm excited to see what Auburn Daily does with that article when there's a big game from a bunch of the transfers to get an upset early. Like if you beat Oklahoma early and KLS goes off for 125 or something, in 2 scores or something dumb.
Speak it into existence.
Just triple digits, couple scores.
Let me say something real quick.
Sam Jackson throws a trick play passing touchdown.
That'd be great. To Peyton? Boy, would that be fun. I love talking season. I love it. And I love the preseason magazines, and the fact that people care so much is why we get to do this, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But the reason I think Locked On, one of the many reasons why Locked On is doing so well, not just Locked On Auburn, but the entire company, the entire network, is the other companies, the other large companies, they want to put national people talking about your team for 5 minutes of the 2 hours that you may be watching. And they don't actually know everything. They're not in it. And so to say like Hugh Freeze didn't score in the portal is ridiculous. But then if you go to an Auburn person and say, oh, okay, I'm going to listen to an Auburn person talk about Auburn, or I'm going to listen to a Tennessee person talking about Tennessee, or whatever it may be, you're actually like getting more accurate information about the team that you care about. So stuff like that, it just seems lazy to me. It's just very lazy. So whatever. Do you think Hugh Freeze scored in the portal this offseason? Let us know in the comments down below. Lindsay, how can people check out everything that you've got going on?
I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. It's kind of the hub for everything. Auburn baseball stuff, auburndaily.com. We just talked about some of the transfer portal adds and subtractions. I did that a lot on Twitter and a piece on the site. Bravestoday.com is kind of the mothership of my MLB stuff, but I'm covering a lot of teams over at Athlon Sports, Marlins, Red Sox, Reds, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of baseball content. I'd love to talk ball. Come find me.
Yep. Please like the video. Please subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow. This has been Locked On Auburn.